When we talk about love, we often focus on what we get: attention, affection, validation. But what if the real power of love lies in what we give? Neuroscience tells us that when one partner takes joy in giving pleasure, the brain lights up not only with desire, but with deep emotional connection. Today, let's explore why the most generous lovers, those who find joy in their partner's happiness, often experience the deepest, most enduring bonds. Imagine for a moment that love is not just an emotion, but a neurochemical symphony, a cascade of biological reactions that influence how we connect, trust, and stay devoted. When two people come together in intimacy, the body becomes a laboratory of powerful brain chemicals. Dopamine, the molecule of desire and reward, surges through the brain's pleasure centers, creating that feeling of euphoria and anticipation. At the same time, oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, begins to flow, fostering warmth, safety, and emotional closeness. And then there are endorphins, our body's natural painkillers, that bring calm, contentment, and a sense of blissful release. Together, these chemicals create what we might call the biological language of love. Now, here's what's fascinating. These reactions don't just happen when we receive affection. They're just as strong, sometimes even stronger, when we give it. The act of giving pleasure, of focusing on another person's happiness, activates the same neural pathways as altruism and empathy. The giver's brain lights up with reward and satisfaction. In essence, we're wired to feel joy when we bring joy to someone else. This isn't just sentimental, it's science. When partners prioritize each other's pleasure, they're not only creating a sensual experience, they're reinforcing trust and emotional safety at the biological level. The brain begins to associate that person with pleasure, comfort, and care, a deeply powerful combination that strengthens attachment. In long-term relationships, this becomes even more vital. Over time, novelty fades, routines form, and the initial dopamine rush of early love begins to quiet down. Yet, couples who consciously continue to give, to explore what brings the other joy, reignite those same neurochemical circuits. Every act of generosity in love, whether physical, emotional, or sensual, can become a spark that reawakens connection. We often think of love as something that happens to us, but in reality, it's something we can actively cultivate through intentional giving. Interestingly, brain imaging studies have shown that people who engage in generous acts toward their partners, acts motivated by genuine care, not obligation, display heightened activity in the ventral tegmental area, the same region associated with the early stages of romantic passion. In other words, generosity doesn't just sustain love, it keeps it feeling fresh. The science suggests that love thrives not on what we receive, but on what we willingly offer. The act of giving pleasure, whether that's through a touch, a word, or a moment of deep listening, signals to the brain that this relationship is valuable, safe, and worth investing in. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. Human survival has always depended on cooperation and pair bonding. When partners care for each other, they create stability, not only for themselves, but also for their offspring and their community. The brain, in its quiet wisdom, rewards those behaviors that strengthen bonds. So when you see someone who genuinely delights in their partner's happiness, you're witnessing one of evolution's most elegant designs, love as a system of mutual reinforcement. But there's something even more profound here. This kind of giving requires presence. It asks us to step outside ourselves, to attune to another person's needs, rhythms, and desires. That act of attention is what transforms physical intimacy into emotional connection. It says, I see you. I care about your experience. In a world that often celebrates taking status, pleasure, success, choosing to give becomes a radical act of intimacy. It deepens the emotional resonance between two people, anchoring them not just in desire, but in trust. The beauty of this dynamic is that it becomes self-perpetuating. The more we give, the more our brains reward us. The more our partner feels cherished, the more likely they are to reciprocate. It becomes a feedback loop of generosity and gratitude, one that nourishes both individuals and the bond between them. Love, then, is not a static state, but a living process, one that thrives on giving, responding, and renewing. So when we talk about love, it's worth remembering that generosity is not simply a moral virtue, it's a biological necessity. To give pleasure, to offer care, to bring happiness to another human being. These are not just gestures of affection. They are the very mechanisms that keep love alive, vibrant, and resilient. And perhaps that's the quiet truth hidden beneath all the complexity of modern romance. The happiest relationships are those where both partners find joy in giving joy. When we look at love through the lens of evolution, we begin to see it not as a modern invention of poetry or romance, but as an ancient strategy for survival. Humans didn't evolve to be solitary. We evolved to connect, to cooperate, and to nurture. The drive to bond, to choose a partner and stay close, is deeply rooted in our biology. And one of the most powerful ways this bond has been reinforced throughout history is through acts of care and attention, especially in the intimate space between two people. When one partner invests time and energy into the other's pleasure and well-being, it sends a primal signal. You matter. You are safe with me. That signal has been essential for human pair bonding for hundreds of thousands of years. Think about the earliest humans living in unpredictable environments where cooperation meant survival. A relationship built on mutual satisfaction and trust would have created an emotional glue strong enough to endure hardship. Those who nurtured each other, not just physically, but emotionally, stood a better chance of raising healthy offspring, maintaining alliances, and thriving as a unit. Evolution favored these bonds not because they were romantic in the modern sense, but because they were reliable, stable, and life-sustaining. Pleasure, in this context, became nature's incentive, a reward mechanism that encouraged behaviors that kept couples together long enough to ensure the success of their lineage. Over time, these biological and emotional reinforcements became deeply embedded in our brains. When we give attention, when we focus on another person's happiness, we activate circuits tied to both pleasure and attachment. That's not accidental. Nature designed it that way so that we would want to stay connected. It's why intimacy, generosity, and affection continue to play such a powerful role in maintaining relationships today. They're not just expressions of love. They're ancient survival codes that our species has carried forward for millennia. But there's more to it than biology alone. The act of giving within love also signals something vital about our intentions and capacity for empathy. In evolutionary terms, being attuned to your partner's needs demonstrates fitness, not just physical, but emotional. It shows that you can communicate, cooperate, and build trust. These qualities are the foundation of long-term partnership and family stability. When one partner consistently gives emotionally, mentally, or physically, it communicates reliability. And reliability is the currency of enduring love. What's fascinating is that even in modern relationships, Where survival is no longer the central challenge, our brains still respond to these ancient cues. When we give selflessly, we trigger hormonal responses that mirror those of early bonding behaviors. Oxytocin floods the system, reducing fear and increasing empathy. Dopamine reinforces the connection by associating the partner with feelings of pleasure and reward. In essence, our biology hasn't evolved away from these patterns, it still uses them to strengthen love. We are, at our core, creatures who thrive on mutual investment. Now, in today's world of instant gratification and fleeting connections, this evolutionary wisdom often gets lost. We tend to focus on attraction as something purely visual or chemical, when in fact it's also deeply behavioral. True attraction grows out of actions that demonstrate care. Generosity of spirit, patience, curiosity. These are all signals that our evolutionary brain still interprets as this person will stay. And because the human brain evolved to crave security as much as novelty, that sense of emotional safety becomes one of the most potent forms of desire. Interestingly, cultures across time have celebrated this principle, even if they didn't have the language of neuroscience to explain it. Ancient poetry, rituals, and courtship customs all emphasized attentiveness, the idea that love flourishes when we invest in another's joy. From the giving of gifts to the sharing of stories, from small daily gestures to grand romantic acts, human beings have always understood, at some intuitive level, that the heart responds most deeply to care that feels genuine and freely given. When two people engage in that kind of mutual investment, something extraordinary happens. They begin to synchronize. Emotionally, physically, and even hormonally. Their stress levels regulate together, their heart rates can align. It's as if the body itself is rewarding the act of partnership. Over time, this creates a rhythm of trust and familiarity that forms the backbone of lasting love. And while we often think of passion as something spontaneous, what science shows us is that passion is sustained through intentional acts of giving, the kind that remind our partner they are seen, valued, and loved. Love, from an evolutionary standpoint, was never meant to be transactional. It was designed to be cooperative. To give to your partner is not to lose power. It's to strengthen the very foundation of your bond. It's an exchange of trust for trust, care for care, pleasure for pleasure. When both partners understand this, they create a dynamic that not only fulfills their emotional and physical needs, but also taps into something much older, something that has kept humans connected since the dawn of time. Because in the end, the evolutionary story of love is simple. Those who gave the most love the longest. Emotional intelligence is the quiet force that transforms attraction into connection and chemistry into compassion. It's not just about feeling, it's about understanding. Understanding what our partner needs, what they fear, what makes them feel desired, secure, and seen. In the realm of intimacy, this awareness becomes a kind of language, one spoken not through words, but through tone, timing, attention, and empathy. It's what allows two people to truly meet each other, not just physically, but emotionally. And the remarkable thing is that this kind of emotional attunement doesn't just make relationships feel better, it actually makes them last. When we think about emotional intelligence in love, it begins with presence. To be fully present with another person, to listen without distraction, to observe the small details of their reactions, to notice what brings them joy or discomfort, is to enter into a shared emotional world. This level of awareness communicates, "You matter to me. I see you." It's not always grand gestures that sustain love. It's the daily practice of empathy. When one partner takes the time to understand the other's emotional rhythms, they create an environment where both feel safe enough to express themselves openly. That safety is what allows love to deepen over time. Science supports this beautifully. Studies show that couples who demonstrate high levels of emotional intelligence, who can identify and respond to each other's emotions accurately, report greater satisfaction, more trust, and stronger sexual connection. When we feel understood, our brains release oxytocin, reinforcing feelings of security and bonding. The act of emotional attunement itself becomes a biological reward, strengthening the pair bond and enhancing mutual desire. It's as if the brain recognizes empathy as one of the most powerful forms of intimacy we can offer. This is why, in many ways, emotional intelligence is the most sensual of all human capacities. It turns love into an art of perception. It's the ability to sense when your partner needs space and when they crave closeness. It's the awareness to recognize that sometimes silence is more comforting than advice, that a gentle touch can say more than 1,000 words. These moments, small as they seem, carry enormous weight because they tell our partner that we are tuned in. They tell them that we care not just about the surface of connection, but about the inner landscape where love truly lives. And this sensitivity doesn't only sustain romantic passion, it sustains respect. When two people can communicate their needs without judgment and respond to each other with patience, love becomes a partnership rather than a negotiation. Emotional intelligence creates a balance between giving and receiving, between independence and interdependence. It teaches us that strength in love isn't found in control, but in understanding. That real power comes not from leading the dance, but from moving in rhythm with another human being. In our modern world, where communication is often reduced to quick messages and distracted glances, this kind of awareness can feel rare. Yet it remains the very thing we crave most deeply. The need to be understood is one of humanity's most fundamental drives. And when that need is met in a relationship, when two people can anticipate each other's emotions, comfort each other's insecurities, and celebrate each other's joys, it creates a connection that feels almost sacred. Emotional intelligence turns love into a sanctuary, a place where we can be our most authentic selves. It also helps us navigate the inevitable storms of partnership. Conflict, after all, is not a sign that love is failing. It's a natural part of two complex beings trying to share a life. What determines the strength of a relationship is not the absence of disagreement, but the presence of emotional skill. The ability to regulate one's own emotions, to listen without defensiveness, and to repair with sincerity. These are the behaviors that keep couples strong through change. Emotional intelligence doesn't eliminate tension, but it transforms it into understanding. At its heart, this quality is about generosity. It asks us to be generous with our attention, our patience, and our willingness to learn from each other. It's about giving space for growth, about knowing that love is not static. It evolves as we do. When we approach intimacy with this kind of open-hearted curiosity, every moment becomes an opportunity to know our partner more deeply. It's not about perfection, it's about presence, not about always being right, but about always choosing to understand. And what's most beautiful is that this kind of giving, the giving of attention, empathy, and respect feeds back into the cycle of love. It reignites desire, builds trust, and fosters joy. Because when someone feels emotionally seen, they open themselves more fully to connection. The heart responds with warmth, the mind with peace, and the body with ease. Love flourishes in that environment. In the end, emotional intelligence is not just a skill, it's the essence of mature love. It's what allows passion to endure, empathy to deepen, and two people to grow not apart but together. So when we step back and look at love, not as mystery or myth, but as something deeply human, we see a simple truth running through it all. Love thrives where generosity lives. It's built not on taking, but on giving, not on grand declarations, but on small, consistent acts of care. The chemistry of connection, the evolutionary pull toward partnership, and the quiet intelligence of empathy all tell the same story. We are wired to bond through kindness. The most enduring relationships are those where both partners find joy in each other's happiness, where giving pleasure becomes an expression of gratitude, and where emotional understanding turns affection into trust. Love, in its truest form, is not a transaction, it's a collaboration. It's two people choosing again and again to invest in one another's joy, safety, and growth. And perhaps that is the most profound lesson of all. The heart doesn't ask for perfection, it asks to be met with presence. Because when love becomes an act of giving freely, consciously, and with empathy, it becomes not just something we feel, but something we have become.